They need to say somewhere to justify it. So if we go further down, they have attempted to do similar to what we do. They've divided cello and viola, which isn't too bad, not as bad as the last one, but they still could have just said lower strings. They've also called it a flute, but they did hear that it was a harpsichord. And they've ticked sections which, you know, isn't bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the examiner goes, right, they've still heard 8 short sections. And this one has clearly said where everything's playing in between. It's looking a lot like ours. As far as an example goes, it's probably maybe verging on sound or detailed. But considering ours, how much better is ours? So melody switches from violin to flute every second section. That's an excellent point. Could have said which creates contrast, however. See, they're not up here. You'll notice they didn't circle the question and write unity and contrast. That's what they want to hear about. When the flute has the melody, the string instruments play pizzicato, plucked and short and accented. Yeah, but like in terms of our thing, we've already said all this up here, so they're wasting time writing this out when we put them in the boxes. When the strings play the melody, they play legato and arco. Arco means played with bow. That's good, but if they'd said there's contrast between playing with the bow and playing pizzicato, that would have improved and pushed them into band 6. This is why they're on the borderline. They're just missing the final nail in the coffin, the icing on the cake. There are different melodies, A, B, and C. Yep, I disagree, but we've spoken about this before. The variation of the B, they see it as a totally different one. Each melody is established by the string instruments and then repeated by the flute. That's a very good point. When flute has the melody, there are only short notes, right? Bit vague. What would have been great in here is an example and just a quick notation of the start. That would have been, again, icing on the cake. They missed that opportunity. Easy to draw, they should have done it. The phrase is played twice by violins. There is a harmony attached to this. That's getting a little bit vague. Could have been worded better. Both violins play harmony for the flute. Where are you talking about? They haven't said who, what, where. It's a pretty pointless comment. Section C, there's a difference. There is a different melody to A and B and ends with a writ. So they've justified why they've said section C, and they've written ended with a writ. We also got that as well. Though we didn't get time to put it in to say that sort of creates contrast at the end, we've still got it in that box. We still get marks, the same mark as they get for writing all this out, we get just for that one comment that we put in the box. Harpsichord plays throughout the excerpt. Yes, that's a good point. Why they didn't just put which creates unity, I'll never know. Flute makes ornamentations on every original melody. Great. Which creates contrast. B section repeats twice. Example, B blah 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 blah. Yeah, okay. You've sort of already said that by showing the grid. So you can see it's still a really good response, but they just missed the final nails in the coffin to push them over the line, and they're quite easy things to fix up. So that's that one. Okay, what we're looking at here is an exemplar response, meaning this is pretty much the best response the Board of Study saw for this question. So let's have a look at what they did. First of all, you'll notice the way they approached it, they've been trained really, really well. They've ticked off each time they've heard a section to keep them focused and know exactly where they are, because when you're nervous, you can often forget which playing you're up to, which can affect you a lot. You can see at the start here they've got clear sections. They've called it A, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7. So they're saying that it's just one theme that's constantly changing. I totally disagree with it, but they're justifying it the whole way. They've called it A, A1, A2, and the examiner might say, but then they look and they say, well, they heard it as a theme and variations on a theme. So they've justified it really well, and I I can't argue with that. So this stuff here is a good example of where they've sort of put some little things that can't really get a mark. I can tell because I have somewhat of a brain that they're just writing down who have the melody there. Our way is so much clearer and also says so much more about the texture and about everything about the accompaniment as well. Doing this up the top is a bit silly, but alright, this piece is the theme and variations. It's performed by a small ensemble consisting of blah 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 blah. We say all that with our grid. Okay, they go into 4 bars long and the time signature is 6/8. So this is what I say when I say it. You stick to the big things first, then if you can go into more depth, and this person has started going to more depth by talking about bars. Okay, again, they've said the structure there, they've already set it up there, that's a massive waste of time. Repetition of the melody provides unity. Hallelujah, someone is finally talking about unity and contrast. This is an exemplar response, even though they've done silly things already that I can see that I think are stupid. It's exemplar because they're one of the few people in the States that actually started talking about unity and contrast without being specifically asked for it. Use of the same instruments throughout provides unity. Correct. Section A, 4 bars long. Viol performs melody whilst bass notes are provided by bass stringed instruments. And then they've given an example. They've actually notated it. If they'd just written sort of short, 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 long, short, 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 long, that would have also been totally acceptable, but you can see they're quite advanced with their 6/8 and they've notated it very, very well. So when it comes to examples, the fact that this is not very good, this totally makes up for it. Phrased in bars of 2, blah, 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 with some extra passing notes. Lute, they've heard it as a lute, not a harpsichord. Doesn't matter, no, they're both plucked instruments. This was the best response in the state, and they stuffed up an instrument too. So this is what I'm saying, don't worry about it too much. It's still a plucked string instrument. Could have happened to the best of us. Lute provides harmonic support with chords. Recorder performs the melody, and then they're going into what performs each section. So they go through and tell us what happens in each section. We do all this in our grid. And you can see they don't really go into that much detail, probably not as much as us. The main thing they did was go a little bit further with their bars. But overall, this was the best response in our state, and I honestly don't believe it's any better than ours. In fact, I still say ours says a lot more thanks to the grid, and then the fact that we stick to unity and contrast below. So if we'd done our response during this year, 2002, question 1, we would have been top of the state.